and welcome to the CNBC TV 18 Investment Guide. It is Wednesday, 3:30, which means it's your date with us to understand the market and its nuances in a slightly more measured and mature manner. That is what this show is all about. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay. With me, as always, is Anuj Singhal. And today we have a very interesting guest joining us once again. He's someone who's as much a stock picker as an author. He's very well known in the market for some of the books that he's written. He was in London at the peak of the global financial crisis, and he always has some very interesting stories for us. But before we tell you more about him and get to those questions straight away, Anuj, I want your take, because I mean, 3 or 4 weeks into this show, one thing that has emerged out for me that it's always that classic debate, growth versus value. Which investment style do you pick? Where do you stand on this big market debate?
You have to have a combination of both, I think, Surabhi. Obviously, that's an easy answer. But look, if you're I tell you one thing, value has underperformed for so long, and it's not shown any signs of, catching up with growth. Right now, the market is in an environment where it wants to pay for growth, and it wants to pay any price for growth. Obviously, that's also perhaps a wrong way of approaching the market, but it's a tough question, and I think that's why we have an important guest joining us.
Oh, absolutely. Our guest on the show this week is Saurabh Mukherjee, the founder of Marcellus Investment Managers. So let's kick things off straight away with the CNBC TV 18 Investment Guide.
Okay, in fact, we have Saurabh Mukherjee now joining us. Saurabh, of course, has founded his own company, Marcellus. Saurabh, thanks a lot for joining us. Now, the first question that I want to, ask you, we keep hearing about this coffee can, right? Coffee can investing. What is this coffee can investing? How did you come up with this? And how do you apply this kind of investment approach in today's market?
So, look, I think it's quite a simple investment. You're right. The name is very intriguing, and it goes back, to my teenage years. I was a cashier in a betting shop in London for a big part of my late teens, and I remember there was a certain punter, a betting man who used to come every morning, 9 o'clock. He would come, hurriedly place his bet and run off to office, right? So I saw this man. He would be in the shop for a few seconds every day, and he would consistently make money. So I was very intrigued. So I asked this British guy, and he said what he did, his style of investing, so to speak, his style of betting was he would read the sports papers over a cup of coffee early in the morning, and he'd been doing this for 20-30 years. And he told me that if you follow something, if you master something over 20-30 years, you're able to see patterns nobody else can see, because you're able to see spans of time nobody else can see. And that message stayed with me through my college years. Then if I fast forward, say 20 years or so, 2013, one evening I was having dinner with my friends at Phoenix Mills, and Sanjay Bhattacharya, one of my gurus, he started talking to us about this paper written by Rob Kirby in 1983 called Coffee Can Investing. Right? That's the first time I heard about the term coffee can investing. And Sanjay said that what Rob Kirby says is, if you buy a cluster, say a dozen or so of really high quality companies, and you let them be for a decade, you're bound to make lots of money. So I was very intrigued, went home and read the paper. It was a real eye-opener. But I started asking myself, well, how does one identify a dozen or so high-quality companies? And that's when the next lucky accident came for me. I think it was 2014. I think one of your sister concerns, Anuja, the Forbes magazine, they organized a roundtable of investors in the Taj, I remember. And Bharat Shahji was speaking there. And Bharat Shahji said that, for him, return on capital and revenue growth were of great importance. And I remember as soon as he said it, a light bulb went off in my head, and I clicked the two together. I said, what if I combine Rob Kirby's coffee can investing construct with long periods of time and look at return on capital and revenue growth over long periods of time? And I did the work, and it worked. 2016, we published Unusual Billionaires. That was the first time I made this concept public in my professional career in India. And in a way, the coffee can construct has gone from strength to strength, from Unusual Billionaires on to my next book, Coffee Can Investing, in 2018. It's very simple, really. You just identify a dozen or so really high quality companies using filters around return on capital and revenue growth. You buy them, you sit tight for a decade or so, and you compound by around 20%, right? Very little human intervention, very little use of judgment, simple use of simple use of fundamental filters to identify great companies and make good money.
You know, Saurabh, you make it sound so simple, right? Because your twin filters are return on capital employed and growth. And if only making money was as simple as that. But let me draw you into the debate, the chit-chat that Anuj and I were just having. You know, growth versus value investing. Yes. Now, you are picking companies that are already showing great growth, that are already throwing up so much of cash. But many a times, that's already baked in the price, right? So then how do you decide if the price is right vis-a-vis some of these parameters?
One reason I write books in India for the Indian market is, I think a lot of people in our country read American books on investing and they get deluded into doing in India what works in America. So you're absolutely right, Surbhi. In buying value stocks, buying companies which are cheap on PE, that help you make money over long periods of time. But in India, it does not work. You can buy stocks which are cheap on PE and you're not going to make money, I'm afraid, in India. What makes you money in India, and the data is very clear over the last 10, 20, 30 years, what makes you money in India is buying companies who compound earnings at a very healthy rate. How do you compound earnings at a very healthy rate? It's not because of GDP growth that earnings compound, right? Earnings compound when a company reinvests large amounts of capital, plows back into the business large amounts of capital. And where I think we are extremely fortunate as a nation is we've got around 20, 25 sector leaders, companies who have monopolized key sectors of the Indian economy, such as cooking oil, hair oil, baby milk powder, adhesives, paints, right? These sector leaders are able to generate on average return on capital of 45%. That gives them around 30% of capital employed as free cash flow. They reinvest the bulk of that back in the business, and thus the business grows at 20-25% per annum, and hence the compounding rate that we were referencing a minute ago in Coffee Can Investing. The compounding rate that the book talks about is 20%. So the focus shouldn't be on PE multiples. It should be on high return on capital and then reinvestment of the surplus capital back in the business to generate good returns for your viewers.
Okay, you know, I have a question on that. In fact, on that, let's take the viewer query as well, because, you know, a very common query is when to exit a stock. Today also we have Shankar asking the same question, and I want to put that in context of, say, something like a GMM Pfaudler. Saurabh, you know, since you spoke about, you know, companies which can deliver the kind of stunning earnings growth, but do you stay invested when stocks reach 100 times price to earnings or 25 times price to book, for example, in a case like GMM Pfaudler?
So I think, Anuj, it's worth distinguishing between two different points. One is the decision to invest in a company, and the second is a decision around position sizing. These are two different scales, right? Should I invest in GMM Pfaudler, which is a part of our Little Champs portfolio? And if I do invest in GMM Pfaudler, what percentage of my portfolio should GMM Pfaudler be? So let me just deal with both of these separate issues. Should I invest or not in a company? The way I was just talking about it in the last 5 minutes is, firstly, we look for clean franchises. We want to invest with promoters who are clean, who are honest, who are not stealing money, right? Straightforward idea. Secondly, we look for companies who are producing essential products and services. It could be essential in the sense of baby milk, or in the case of GMM, it's essential in the sense of these are glass-lined vessels that the pharmaceutical and the chemical industry cannot do without. It's an absolute essential, right? So look for essential products and services. And thirdly, look for dominant franchises. Look for monopolies, right? GMM Pfaudler effectively has no competition today in the glass-lined vessels industry. Nestle has no effective competition in the baby milk powder industry. Asian Paints has, you know, the only real challenger to Asian Paints really is Berger Paints, right? So look for monopoly franchises. These are the three criteria which drive our entry decision: cleanliness, essentiality, and dominance. The question then becomes, what percentage of my portfolio should, say, a Nestle or a GMM Pfaudler form, right? And that's where the harder part comes in, right? The way we have thought about it is, the higher the barrier to entry, the greater should be the portfolio allocation. So just to sort of take broadly some broad ballpark numbers, GMM Pfaudler roughly is, say, 9-10% of our Little Champs portfolio. But as I think as your viewer is alluding to, the stock is up, I think, some 6x in the last 12 months or so. It's a rocket propelled run, right? In the last 12 months, so the last 6 days itself, it's up 55%. Now, if I let the stock rip from being 10% of the portfolio, it'll become 50% of our Little Champs portfolio, right? So that doesn't make any sense. So our job is to constantly position size and make sure that the portfolio construct stays unchanged. So if GMM Pfaudler doubles, then we bring it back to 10% by halving the position. If GMM Pfaudler halves, so another investee company of ours, Bajaj Finance, fell 70% through January, February, March. We didn't just let the position size dribble down, we doubled down on Bajaj Finance through April, May. So the position size should be determined not by the prevailing share price, it should be determined by the fund manager's perception of the barrier to entry, the dominance of the company. And if the stock then rips through, then obviously you resize back to a sensible position, which in our case, my view would be with franchises of this quality, you should have 9-10% of your portfolio in franchises of this quality.
Okay, got that answer though. So I think what you're saying is that exit is determined by the mandate. I mean, if you're a fund manager, then that, or if you're an individual investor, about what you're setting out to do. You know, another question that comes to mind. Now, today's hottest sector, obviously, Saurabh, is technology. Everybody wants to find some internet bandwagon to climb on in India, and we have a very limited supply. So how do you look at it, and do any of the current listed entities pass muster through both your twin filters of ROCE and growth?
So I think we've got a technology problem clearly in the Indian stock market. So whilst we have TCS in some of our portfolios and Info Edge in some of our portfolios, but more generally, right, we do have a problem in our stock market. The problem actually is broader than technology. If you see the Indian stock market, let's take the Nifty, which is 90% of the market cap of the market. You'll see very few new, exciting, vibrant stories in the Nifty. The Nifty has increasingly become a moribund collection of yesterday's franchises, and unsurprisingly therefore, the Nifty's 10-year earnings CAGR is close to zero. Right, 5-year earnings CAGR I think is 2 or 3%. 10 years earnings CAGR is close to zero. Now, nobody out there is going to contend that the Indian economy hasn't grown in the last 10 years. So why hasn't the Nifty been able to grow earnings in the last 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? It's because the Nifty no longer reflects the dynamism of the Indian economy. And this, I think, Surabhi, is happening because private equity and venture capital is taking away the best investment opportunities in India. These are skillful, well-informed, well-capitalized investors, often global investors, and they're taking away the pick of the Indian investment opportunities. Therefore, I think our authorities, right, the exchanges, I think SEBI, should really look actively to see what can be done to make the stock market more vibrant, to bring better IPOs into the market, to make it easier for companies to IPO earlier in their existence. Because if we don't do that, the stock market will become very similar to what it is today. The best ideas in Indian investing are increasingly not found in the stock market, they're outside. Now, at one level, I can say, we at Marcellus are fine because we carry on investing in these sector-leading companies, these monopolists who are chugging out 20-25% earnings growth. That's all right for me, but hey, for the country as a whole, we do need a more vibrant listed market ecosystem. For that, I think we need to change the listing rules and bring more exciting, better quality companies into the stock market.
Okay, Saurabh, well, that's an interesting point. Let's do one thing. We'll take a break, but don't go anywhere. We have a couple of important queries that you have asked, and of course, a couple of other interesting themes to discuss with Saurabh Mukherjee. Remember, you can keep sending your queries using the hashtag AskCNBCTV18. Of investing. With us is Saurabh Mukherjee, founder of Marcellus Investment Managers. Saurabh, the big rally has happened in the broader market over the last 3 months, and for good reason, right? The valuations were really compressed. Even now they are compared to, say, 2017 levels, especially in price to book. You have launched a small cap fund, but tell us, what should be the thought process now on smaller companies? Because that is where you can get it horribly wrong as well.
Yeah, so I think on this facet, for small cap companies, I have to concede the last 2-3 years has been very interesting for us. So a couple of years back, when we were setting up Marcellus, we applied for the license, and as we were waiting for the license, we had a little bit of time to spare. So we started crunching the data on the world below the BSE 500, right? And this is the 1,000 stocks below the BSE 500, starting at say 4,000 crores market cap and going all the way down to say 100 crores. And we applied something similar to the coffee can filters you referenced earlier in the discussion. We said, let's look for smaller companies which are growing over the last 6-7 years at a good rate. Their return on capital is improving, their gross margins are improving, their working capital cycle is improving. And we found a list of around 25 such smaller companies, market cap of say 2,000, 3,000 crores. And what astonished me when I looked at them was they were steady compounders. They were not companies which flew up in 2017, got banged up in 2018, right? They were steady compounders. And it took me a year to convince myself that, hey, even in small cap investing, you can do this identical sort of compounding that we do in CCP, which is buy well-run, clean, dominant small cap franchises and compound steadily. So we mustered our courage, and August 19, exactly a year ago, we launched our small cap product Little Champs with, I have to concede, much apprehension. It was a little difficult at the outset to market it. A year ago, people were not in the mood for buying small caps. But then through COVID, we managed to get so much money in, and the performance also came through, that a couple of weeks back, we had to actually shut our Little Champs product to inflows. As of yesterday, we are up around 27% YOY. These are small companies, average market cap 3,000 crores. These are net cash companies, return on capital is 25% odd, and we've generated around 25% in the first 12 months of Little Champs' existence. And for me, it's been a big revelation. It's been a revelation that just like in consistent compounders in the BSE 500, so too in the world below the BSE 500, you can find compounding stories which are not dependent on a bull market and which don't die in a bear market. They carry on giving investors out there steady returns through the cycle. So if you sort of step back and look at it, there is no large cap, small cap investing difference in India. Across the market cap piece, you're just doing three things. For figuring out who are the clean franchises, so throwing out the dodgy companies, looking for products or services which are essential for Light is building monopoly. Number 3, I think if you want to benefit from this remarkable company's capital allocation, it's worth getting stuck in. We're making money from this in consistent compounders. Coming down the market cap spectrum, we've discussed GMM Pfaudler. It's part of our Little Champs portfolio. There's another company in Little Champs called Alkyl Amines, around $600 million market cap. The dominant player in aliphatic amines. It might sound academic, aliphatic amines, but it's an essential chemical. It's a highly combustible chemical. You need lots of regulatory clearances to build it, and alkyl amines is the class play in this, dominant player, clean, well-run compounding machine in the aliphatic amines industry. So alkyl amines, GMM Pfaudler, Pidilite, and Kotak Bank from our various portfolios. That would be my submission to your viewers.
Okay, let me throw in my last quick question. I think we have just 10 to 20 seconds left on the show, Saurabh. You guys have been known for picking some of the best-run consumer companies because they just simply meet your filters of high ROAS and growth. So if you were to pick one consumer stock that you love the most in India right now, which would it be?
I think Nestle. Nestle for me is the evergreen favorite. Such a simple company, supplying baby milk to 97% of our country, money machine which compounds at 20% with volatility lower than a Government of India bond. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, I've been a customer, so I know that.
Oh, I have too, especially in the lockdown. I think we can all vouch for that. All right, Saurabh, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for sharing some of those insights with us. Always a great conversation. Thank you for being with us on the CNBC TV 18 Investment Guide. Well, on that note, Anuj, I think we will also have to take leave, and we'll come back with another guest and some more interesting themes.
Oh yes, next week we have a big fund manager joining us, and we will be discussing some interesting themes. So keep sending your queries, and of course, we will take them up with our experts on CNBC TV 18.